Welcome back to Analytical Media. Today we're going to look at gang stalking, or the targeted individuals. Gang stalking is an interesting phenomenon. Mass murderers have believed themselves to be victims of gang stalking, and the very murders they committed was in an attempt to stop the gang stalking. The harassment by government officials and agencies and persons unknown. Gang stalking is rather controversial. Government agencies, policemen, believe gang stalking to be a delusion, a mental illness, and it may be a delusion or a mental illness. But we need proof one way or the other. It is critically important that we neither believe the gang stalking victim, nor do we disbelieve the gang stalking victim. It's very important for us to find the truth. We need evidence. Gang stalking should not be confused with the Havana syndrome, the use of weapons to affect people from a great distance, unknown weapons, microwaves, other frequencies of electromagnetic radiation. Many of them are in litigation. We're talking about gang stalking, where weapons of that type might be used. In fact, many gang stalking victims feel that there are weapons that control their thoughts, weapons that make them ill. Thus, in many television shows and movies over time, we have seen people wearing aluminum foil hats that they made. We've seen people line their rooms with aluminum foil. We see people that shut off the electricity to their homes and still line the walls with aluminum foil, all in an attempt to protect them from this unknown electromagnetic radiation. Now, in no case has that been measured. There's no evidence that that's true. We have no one's come with an EMF detector and measured new radiations, anything unusual, anything abnormal. And you do have to realize that in the room you're sitting in right now, you are bombarded with electromagnetic radiation and signals from the satellites that are overhead. They are transmitting down microwaves and all the television programming coming in. We have naturally occurring radiation coming from outer space of all types of frequencies. That's not unusual, that's common. No place on earth is free of this. Not on the surface of the earth anyway. But it hasn't hurt anyone. And no one appears to be sensitive to this. Not children, certainly, but adults. Some adults at some point in their life believe that this radiation is hurting them, and thus the aluminum foil clothing or the mylar clothing and hats. And that's oftentimes been associated with schizophrenia, who believe they are being controlled because there are thoughts in their mind that they don't recognize as being their own. Little voices speaking to them that don't appear to be them. Certainly a well-known phenomenon. However, one should never assume that everyone who feels gang stalking is occurring to them. Everyone or anyone who feels that they are being targeted, and thus the term TI, or targeted individual, no one should assume that they're lying. No one should assume that it's a delusion. It should not be assumed. We need evidence one way or the other. And in most other ways, let's say, most targeted individuals are quite normal and would carry on a very good discussion at any depth. However, it's easy for these people to be diagnosed as with a mental illness, being delusional in one way or the other. It is difficult for these people. Very difficult. Analytical media is not saying that they're incorrect. We are not saying that they are mentally ill. But what we are saying is you're going to have evidence. I'm simply not going to believe you just because you believe that to be true. We are not going to believe you. You need evidence. We need some type of evidence. And oftentimes the evidence that TIs bring forth is really not evidence at all. I'm familiar with a case where the evidence that the TI was asserting was the fact that wherever they went, every few cars, they would see a white car. Every 4 or 5 cars, sometimes 2 in a row. Other TIs assert that black cars, they see them wherever they go. You know, they'll see different colors and then boom, there's the black car. Well, if memory serves me correctly, black cars and white cars are about 20%. Each is about 20%, roughly, of the car colors that are out there. So you should expect 1 car out of 5 to be black or white. So that's not evidence that this is not good evidence. Other people will assert that they oftentimes hear helicopters overhead. Well, it's not uncommon. And overhead with a helicopter, something that's 20 miles away, a helicopter that's 20 miles away, could seem to be overhead. Just because you can see it up in the sky, it could be 20 miles away. So you need stronger evidence than that. We have been contacted by many targeted individuals based on publications and things of that sort. And they are insistent and quite articulate in their insistence that they are victims. And as I said before, they may be victims. We're not saying otherwise. I'm completely open. All of us are completely open to the idea that this case of gang stalking, whichever one it is real. That there's some gang is stalking them. Some government agency is indeed doing this to them. We are not saying otherwise. We're completely open to that, as one needs to be. We should believe something with evidence. Believe it's true with evidence, or believe it's not true because of a lack of evidence or evidence to the contrary. And as I said, a number of mass murderers killing 3, 5, 10 people have done so simply to fight back against what the government's doing to them. Real or not, that was their motive. And it wasn't the first choice. Not at all. People oftentimes spend years contacting local government, federal government, the FBI, Homeland Security, and they get to run around, as we oftentimes do with all government agency. Just get to run around. They get pushed off, pushed away, and eventually, when no other help is available, many of these individuals pick up guns and begin to shoot people. Violence is never acceptable. We are simply attempting to explain how the targeted individual or why they turn to violence. They're at the end of their road. They've gone everywhere. Or at least they think they have. They've been tortured, as I've explained. It's very important to emphasize that they should try to seek help. They should never turn to violence no matter what. Unfortunately, some do, because they have gone through so much pain. It's an explanation, but violence is never justified. There's some things that we should look at historically, because there are cases before the development or invention of electricity and radio or television. Long before that, we had people believing that they were being controlled by machines. If we look back to 1810, there was a book by John Haslam titled Illustrations of Madness. Haslam was a chemist at London's Royal Bethlehem Hospital. He talks about the case of James Matthews, who he referred to later as Mr. M. And Mr. M believed he was being controlled by mysterious, undercover, highly influential, and politically connected gangs of people who were manipulating him with machines he called air looms. Mr. M was concerned about one heirloom in particular that he believed was operated by a gang of 7 people, composed of 4 men and 3 women. Mr. M described in meticulous detail the lives and personalities of the 7 gang members. The mysterious machine, he explained, ran on magnetically charged, invisible gases and rays. The heirloom caused dozens of tortures and great bodily pain for the victim, eventually causing the victim to become insane. For instance, the machine was capable of fluid locking, in which it would constrict the fibers of the root of his tongue and impede his speech. Bladder filling, another bizarre torture, involved filling the nerves of the neck with gas, GAZ, in an effort to cause partial dislocation of the brain and to weaken the intellect. Other unusual tortures described included stomach skinning, lobster cracking, lengthening the brain, thought making, dream working, and others. Delusions of an influencing machine were also described by Tusk in 1919 in an article titled The Origin of the Influencing Machine in Schizophrenia. Tusk presented several cases of patients who believed that their thoughts and feelings were influenced by a distant machine, sometimes through dreams, using waves, rays, and other mysterious forces. All of this was before electricity, before the radio, the television, before satellites, before many of these waves were even known. The electromagnetic spectrum wasn't understood. Microwaves, for instance, are just a frequency of an electromagnetic wave. If that wave is of a different frequency, we would see it as light. We might see it as different frequency blue light, different frequency red light. It might be a radio wave. Different frequencies and microwaves, of course, all naturally occurring in the universe, all coming through the air from outer space all the time. So, what's the truth? As preposterous as it sounds, that someone is invading your mind through some electronic source, it could be true. And the Havana syndrome hints at the fact that some things are being done already. Now, that does not mean that the person experiencing this, hearing voices, feeling weak, having strange dreams, being unable to sleep, it doesn't mean that it's anything more than a mental illness. Because if you've ever worked with persons with delusions, they are extremely real. The delusions are extremely real. People say, believe your eyes. Well, they see these things. They hear these. Listen, I heard it myself. I heard it with my own ears. I saw it with my own eyes. That's what a delusion is like. And many delusional people are very logical and reasonable, able to function every day, to do surgeries as medical doctors, to go to court, win cases as attorneys. Delusion is a strange thing. Very strange. Many gang stalking believers claim that the stalking is occurring because of implanted devices that have been implanted in their necks, behind the jaw, close to the brain, inside the brain, and other places. And this is how they are being impacted by these remote distanced weapons. However, you have to recognize that so do people who believe they are in contact with aliens. So do they believe that they are being controlled through remote control devices that react inside their body by controlling the implants. So there's a similarity there. Really not too much different. Hearing voices, feeling ill. So this is something for you to evaluate. Both the targeted individual and the victim of alien implants will resort in them using aluminum foil, Faraday cages, which are a metallic screen that one might go into, a box, a cage that one could go into, made of metal and grounded. Could be wire, and electric signals will not pass through there. They will get grounded, and it's true. The Faraday cage is a real thing. It will do exactly that. Other individuals will use a lead shielding and anti-radiation devices that send out a blocking frequency of sound to overwhelm the alien sound or the TI, the gang stalkers' devices. As I mentioned earlier, these people suffer greatly and have tried to get help in every way they could possibly think of, including lawsuits, FOIA requests. They try hard to stop this. Unfortunately, when it doesn't stop, sometimes they turn to violence. which I think is understandable when you see how they've been tortured. They have been tortured. There are people listening to this right now who are being tortured. They're in great pain, great suffering. Their lives have been destroyed. Now, is this because of aliens or targeted individuals being the victim of gang stalkers? We don't know. But we do need evidence one way or the other. Nonetheless, the targeted individual suffers, truly suffers, and should be taken seriously. And all efforts should be made to find evidence to prove what's going on, or enough evidence to believe that it is a mental issue, it is a delusion. Just assuming it's a delusion is not enough. These people should be taken far more seriously. And I am as open to this being we are as open to this being a mental illness as we are it being very real. To take any other position would be unscientific. But we need evidence. And if I were to speak to a victim of gang stalking, I would tell them, you need evidence. You must gather evidence. That's where your efforts should go, in gathering evidence. And the evidence needs to be good evidence. It needs to be real evidence. Just because you hear static on the phone does not mean that electronic signals are being broadcast at you. It doesn't mean that you're being spied on because you hear clicking on your phone line. We need real evidence. Just because every time you go somewhere, every fifth car drives down the road is white. It should be white because there's about 20% of cars are white. So we need decent evidence. And it's important for the targeted individual to recognize this, that if they don't have the evidence, they have to be open to the idea that this may simply be a delusion. You hear things with your own ears. You see things with your own eyes. And when these things are together, they're not hallucinations. They're delusions. When all things come together, it's better to see them. Compound delusion. Law enforcement oftentimes does not have the manpower or the equipment to examine the claims of targeted individuals. But it's the most important thing. Today, targeted individuals can communicate in groups on the internet. Dozens, even hundreds, can get together. And their resources are not meager. Perhaps the police can't afford scanners of frequencies or more sophisticated equipment. But the group could. The group needs to know that no one's going to believe them until they have evidence, because no one has believed them yet. They believe each other. But you need to get some help. You need government support. You need the police to be involved. Now, when you believe that the police are behind this or the government's behind it, well then, it makes sense why they wouldn't try to help. But they could help each other through equipment, through hiring surveillance experts. Not each individual, but as a group, making it affordable. And also the claims of targeted individuals are such that law enforcement may simply not understand what it is that the TI is experiencing or even talking about. They don't have the background, they don't have the training. The internet provides a meeting ground, a place for these individuals to discuss what's happening to them, almost like a club. That's good in the sense that they can support each other, but the potential danger is that they will support unfounded beliefs that lack evidence, and that could be the danger. So each individual needs to recognize they're not going to be believed, no matter what they're going through, until they have some evidence. They must get that evidence, and it has to be good evidence. It can't be that 1 car out of 5, no matter where they go out to dinner, they go to the doctors, they're going to see a white car. If they look in a rear view mirror, they'll see a white car back there. Might not be the one right behind the car, might be back five car lengths, 7 cars, 8 cars. They're going to see a white car. Could be a black car. But that's what they should expect. And so would you. If you look in your rear view mirror and you can see 5 or 10 cars behind you, you're going to notice that 20% of those cars will be white on average, 20% black on average. One needs to recognize that such a claim made by a TI should not be believed, because that's what we would expect by chance alone. However, for the TI, it means something. There's a causal relationship between that white car they see and their belief that they are being targeted. Whereas to the non-TI, when they see the same white car back there, or they hear the same helicopter overhead, in no way do they associate that with being a targeted individual. It's just a helicopter, and they fly by all the time. It's just a white car, and there's lots of white cars. That's how the non-TI sees it. TI sees that as evidence, and they need to recognize it is not evidence. A frequency distribution of car colors would show that roughly 1 car out of 5 is going to be white. Now, we've talked about the symptoms of the TI. Let's talk about the symptoms, the reported symptoms of the paranoid schizophrenic. Their symptoms are delusions of persecution, auditory hallucinations, hypervigilance, exactly the same things that the TI is reporting. However, it doesn't mean that the TI is mentally ill in the smallest way. Let's go on with our look at this from a psychological perspective. Another mental health condition is delusional disorder of the persecutory type. These individuals hold false beliefs about being targeted, misinterpreting neutral events, for instance, a stranger coughing, as deliberate harassment. And then we have shared delusional disorders, which is what the online TI community or groups or message boards may be guilty of, creating a collective narrative, which then makes it all seem even more real to the targeted individual. Now, unfortunately, due to the internet, there is a conspiracy culture. Platforms like X and Facebook, groups of various types, message boards of various types, Reddit. You can find conspiracy theories there. Theories that say that the government has overreach, that there are global agendas, there are secret technologies, and they express it with terms like deep state, the new world order, or transhumanism. The voices that TIs hear are antagonistic, generally speaking. These voices may taunt the individual, threaten the individual, or command the individual. Wow. Oftentimes they claim to hear these voices through a new technology called voice to skull, or V2K. However, no one should believe anything without evidence. The claims of the car salesman sound good. He sounds good, sounds like a nice guy. But the claims he made that this car is the best one, this car is the best gas mileage, this car is the best ride, this is the highest rated car, all those things need to be verified. And if you do verify it, you'll do better in life, you'll prosper. And if you don't verify everything, you'll be taken advantage of and hurt. Let's talk about a man, Stephen Marlowe, who believed that he was a victim of gang stalking. He lived in Ohio, and in 2022, he was accused of killing 4 people. He uploaded a video before the shooting stating his intent to, quote, help other targeted individuals, end quote, and conduct the, quote, first counterattack against mind control in history, end quote. A manifesto found on his computer described his neighbors as mind-controlling terrorists. This case aligns with a pattern seen in the earlier cases, many earlier cases. Let's look at the case of another person claiming to be mind-controlled, a TI. April 3rd, 2009, Jiverly and Terrace Wong, a 41-year-old Vietnamese immigrant, killed 13 people and injured 4 at the American Civic Association in Binghamton, New York, before committing suicide. Wong, heavily armed with extra weapons and ammunition and a bulletproof vest, targeted former fellow students and employees at the immigration center where he had studied for 2 months. Wong was severely mentally ill, likely psychotic, and possibly schizophrenic, with worsening symptoms weeks before the attack. His parents noted increased isolation, paranoia, and his refusal to eat or leave his bedroom. A hospital evaluation was ineffective due to the Vietnamese language barrier. Wong's 2-page suicide letter sent to a news station detailed his belief in gang stalking by an undercover cop who surveilled him, tampered with his home, stole money, and caused physical harm using an ultra-modern camera for burn chemicals and an electric gun. He believed this cop spread rumors, caused job loss, and followed him from California to New York. Wong's autopsy revealed a cryptic tattoo of numbers, shapes, and a black square. Its meaning is undeciphered. Premeditation is evident in his suicide letter. Heavy armament and bulletproof vest. His delusional belief in gang stalking, coupled with untreated mental illness, drove him to violence to expose his perceived persecutors. Let's look at the case of Aaron Alexis. On September 16, 2013, Aaron Alexis, a 34-year-old Navy contractor, entered Building 197 at the Washington Navy Yard in Washington, D.C. At 8:02 a.m., he fatally shot 12 people, injured 4, in a 69-minute rampage. Armed with a sawed-off shotgun that he had purchased 2 days prior and a handgun taken from a security guard, Alexis shot and killed a number of individuals. His victims were randomly chosen. He was killed at 9:25 a.m. He was killed at 9:25 a.m. by the police. Alexis believed he was targeted by extremely low frequency Alexis believed he was targeted by extremely low frequency electromagnetic waves, which he claimed tormented him for 3 months, driving him to the attack. He engraved phrases like "end the torment" and "my ELF weapon" on his shotgun. A month before, he reported to police and his employer that people followed him, sent vibrations into his body, and used microwave signals to control him. He complained of voices through walls, floors, and ceilings, and believed the chip was implanted in his head. His employer noted his disturbing behavior, and his mother confirmed prior paranoid episodes. Alexis visited VA emergency rooms in August 2013 for insomnia, receiving low-dose antidepressants, but he denied being in any danger. He denied that he was a danger to anyone else. He emailed the Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance group on September 1st, 2013, discussing ELF weapons. Premeditation is suggested by his weapon purchase, engravings, and acceptance of death as concluded by the FBI. His mental decompensation, marked by paranoia and gang-stalking delusions, was evident in multiple incidents, though no formal diagnosis was established. Let's look at the case of Gavin Long. Here's another case, the case of Gavin Long. On July 17th, 2016, 29-year-old Gavin Long ambushed and shot 6 Baton Rouge police officers, killing 3 and injuring 3, before being killed by a SWAT team. Long, armed with 2 assault rifles, a 9mm pistol, wearing a ski mask, traveled from Kansas City, Missouri to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, shortly after the police killing of Alton Sterling. His attack appeared motivated by anger over police. His attacks appeared motivated by anger over police shootings of African American men, and his long-held belief that he was a targeted individual. Long considered himself a TI for 11 years, alleging law enforcement persecution and gang stalking. He shared these beliefs on his blog, his YouTube videos, his podcasts, and Twitter. He claimed that the Marine Corps supervisors monitored him during his 5-year military service. He believed the government blacklisted him, preventing employment, and instructed his friends and family to isolate him. Long was a member of a sovereign citizen group. He identified himself as a freedom strategist, advocating violent revolution over protest. His mother, Corrine Woodley, suggested he had untreated post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and paranoia. He believed the CIA followed him. She noted his distress over police killings, which pushed him further over the edge. Long left a handwritten letter in his car and a 3-page letter to an acquaintance expressing his belief that his actions were necessary to reform the police and justice system. And here is the last case that we will be covering, of Myron May, who believed himself to be a targeted individual and committed mass murder. On November 20th, 2014, Myron Deshaun May, a 31-year-old Florida State University alumnus and lawyer, entered PSU's Strollers Library at 12:30 a.m. and shot 3 people with a stolen .380 semi-automatic handgun. The victims, 2 male students and 1 male PSU employee, were randomly chosen. After reloading, May exited the library, refused to surrender to police. After reloading, May exited the library, refused to surrender to police, and was fatally shot 24 times. May exhibited significant mental health issues, including paranoia and delusions, believing he was a TI, subjected to gang stalking. He reported hearing voices narrating his actions, seeing people in dark sunglasses, giving him strange looks, experiencing tactics like brightening, bright lights shining into his home, noise campaigns, and mopping cars driven by people in sunglasses. He also believed in directed energy weapons and psychotronic weapons that transmitted sounds and extracted images from his mind. 2 days before the shooting, May recorded 3 videos, 41, 33, and 33 minutes long, detailing his TI experiences, praying for forgiveness, and explaining his interest in drawing media attention to TIs. He sent certified packages to 10 people, including Renee Pittman Mitchell, a gang-stalking author, and left a 5-page letter titled, "My Experiences as a Targeted Individual," expressing regret but justifying his actions as necessary to expose gang-stalking. His interactions with Pittman showed disagreement over his suicidal intentions, with May insisting his death not be in vain. Premeditation was evident in his videos, scripts, letters, and mailed packages. Students reported odd behavior days before, including May posting as an alumnus to gather social media information and attending a class uninvited. His mental decline was noted by his ex-girlfriend, who reported his erratic behavior and severe mental disorder to police. It was also reported by friends who observed his paranoia and financial struggles. Despite his insistence that he was not mentally ill, evidence suggests a severe psychological breakdown. Are TIs being tortured? Of course they are. They are literally suffering. Their lives are being destroyed. The solution could well be some psychotherapy or some drug protocol to regain their life. Blaming non-existent gang stalkers will never cure that problem, because it's not real. There are no gang stalkers in that case. Taking drugs and going through years of psychotherapy when some government group has been terrorizing you will do you no good whatsoever. If you have a leak in the ceiling, there's no doubt you have a leak in the ceiling. You can see the water dripping off. But putting a new roof on will not necessarily solve the problem. Replacing the flange on the toilet upstairs might. Replacing a corroded pipeline might. But the idea is you must fix what's broken. What is causing the problem? And that's what the targeted individual needs to recognize. It won't do any good to blame the government if really you're suffering from a delusion or a hallucination. However, no psychotherapy is going to help you, or drug protocol, if you are actually being gang stalked by the CIA or some Russian agency or a group of people who dislike you. So it's very important. Should not be ignored. And every example that I'm aware of, the police have been less than helpful. It is, I'm sure there are exceptions, But in general, the police are not going to investigate people stalking you unless they can find them. Unless you can show them videotapes of this happening. They're not going to take it seriously. And that's generally true. It's sad. It's a very sad thing to say. But the police are far too overworked. There are too few of them to deal with complex issues of this sort. I hope I've brought the right emphasis to this situation. I hope that we as an organization have covered this thoroughly for you. Analytical Media has many more videos that we intend to post. If you have more questions, please post them in the comments section or email us directly. We will get back to you. We will address your questions. We will talk to you in our next video. We'll see you then. Violence is never acceptable. We are simply attempting to explain how the targeted individual or why they turn to violence. They're at the end of their road. They've gone everywhere. Or at least they think they have. They've been tortured, as I've explained. It's very important to emphasize that they should try to seek help. They should never turn to violence no matter what. Unfortunately, some do, because they have gone through so much pain. It's an explanation, but violence is never justified.